Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio. And I'm your host, Janet Kara Lessin. My co-host is Teresa J. Morris. I'm not sure if she's joining us today or not, but if she does show up, I will click her on. And my guest today is Dave Emmons, and he's a Contactee experiencer. And I have a long bio outlining his different episodes, but for example, at 14 years of age, he saw his first UFO with a friend, and he found an implant on his left testicular area that looked like a small ibuprofen pill. He had several vivid dreams, allowing him to predict events that are coming up via his third eye. He saw, in '96, he saw his first small gray by his bedside. And in 2001, he saw a silver slow-moving glider-looking craft. So he's got a list on aquariumradio.com of all of his events, and we're going to very slowly but surely go through his life and give him a timeline and unpack his episodes. Like many other experiencer contactees, we are starting to come out and tell our story. So we're here to witness Dave and allow him to share with us his encounters with extraterrestrials and UFOs, like many of us. I too, am a lifelong experiencer, and I'm a therapist, and I do hypnotherapy with hundreds, if not thousands, of experiencers. Been doing this all my life. I'm 65 years old, and we're both baby boomers. Dave is 70. Welcome to our show. Let me make sure. Yeah, Dave, are you there?
I am here,
Hello,
Janet. This is Dave Emmons. Nice to meet everybody.
Very nice to have you on the show. And so, and I do want to tell you, Dave, that we are recording this live, and then we're going to take it and put it on about 20 different platforms, including YouTube. So this is going to get distributed far and wide. So, Dave, why don't you start at the beginning and tell us things that are relevant that our listeners need to know about you and your life and your experiences. And we'll have you talk for about 10, 15 minutes, and then I'm going to take notes, and I will stop you and ask you questions. So kind of keep an eye where you are in your storyline at all times, because I'm going to help you flesh this out so we get a fuller picture for our listeners. Okay, Dave?
Okay.
Okay,
all right.
Dave. So start wherever you want to start.
Okay, we'll start at the age of 14. That's when it all started. And it's something that I'll never forget. Whenever you have one of these experiences, it's just like burned into your memory. And you can actually almost remember the day and the minute. But this first one, when I was only 14, I didn't keep track of a lot of days or minutes. So it was in the summertime of 1963. And a buddy of mine, he's one of my best friends, and he still is, and we still talk about this event when we get together. Just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about it. And what happened one night was we were sitting there as two young boys sitting on some steps at his house, and we smelled something that smelled like ozone. We found out it's ozone, but we thought it was sulfur at the time. And then we saw some lights, and actually the little AM radio we had, 10 transistor, I believe it was, it started having static, and it was starting to be disrupted quite a bit. And we kind of argued with each other, said, "Did you change the batteries in that radio?" And we kind of laughed about it, and then we kept watching these lights come over the neighborhood. So we went up on the street level, and then we had a flashlight that we shined at this object, and we kind of looked at each other and said, "Are we seeing what we're really seeing here?" I said, "Yeah, I'm seeing something pretty amazing." And so we walked up to this yard. It was about half a block away. It was an empty lot, and we stood there and looked right at it. Actually, this UFO, or it's actually saucer shaped. It looked like one of them toys, the old time toys. They're kind of like chubby little tops that you churn with this handle, and it spins around.
Oh, I remember those. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. It kind of looked like that. A little bit more chubbier than the than the real slim line. I guess they got new models now. I'm not sure, but we saw the portals, windows around it, about halfway up, and then there's kind of like another, like a bubble top, and then it had two rods or antennae, in which I found out later that's no doubt what they were. So what those antennae were doing, how they received their communications, that could be one of the methods. I'm not sure. We saw these. Why would these two antennae-looking things be up at the top of it? And it had a flashing white light on it. Actually, two of them. I think one in the front and the back, and that's how we noticed it. And it just stood there in midair. And it was only about 75 feet above us, and we kept looking at it. We pinched each other. Said, "Do you see this?" "Yeah, I can't believe it." And so I said, "Pinch me." So my buddy pinched me too hard, and we had a chuckle out of it. And I said, "Wow, not that hard, buddy." And I said, then we stood there looking, and after that, we really don't know what happened, because we thought that I was afraid to see one of these aliens look out one of those portals, those window-looking objects, and I didn't want to see one of them. I was a little afraid of that. But what happened after that was we were kind of like lost in time. This happened about 10:30 in the evening, and I know it's a little late for kids, but back then kids kind of stayed out a little late, and they didn't get in trouble. So, but we lost track of time. Him and I still to this day can't nail down the time. But when I come home, my mom had to unlock the door, and I told her, I said, I saw a UFO, and she said, "I'll UFO your butt," So I just wanted in the house. So I forgot about it after that, and I didn't think about it. But when I had a regressed dream, and Janet, you might know a little bit about this regression stuff, but I had a regressed dream that took me back, and I was trying to put on a shirt on a metal table, and it was too small for me. Well, my friend was a little smaller than I was. I was kind of a bulky guy, kind of a football player type guy, and I did play football a little bit in high school, but I couldn't get the shirt on in this regressed dream. And then it stopped. All of a sudden, that's all I saw. But then when I drew it out, I drew where it was at. It was right in my backyard, actually, and I kind of drew out the saucer in the backyard. But then when I saw it leave, it just darted out to the west, just due west, and it was actually, when we saw it, it was in the southwest. So it must have changed positions some time during that time that we missed. And I kind of thought, well, they beamed us up, no doubt. They kind of knocked us out and beamed us up because we had an hour or so of time that was missing. So, and my buddy's starting to think that's probably what happened. There for a while, he was kind of, he hasn't had the experiences I've had. Now, I don't know how you can draw the difference between two people. I went on to having a lot of experiences, especially in the past 10 years, and he hasn't had any more experiences because we talk, and I don't know why. Why was I followed? Why was I tagged with that?
Let's look at that. It's a very good question, because they will take certain people, and we always say that you like won the lotto, right? You got selected, and so why did they take you and not him? It probably, and this is just based on the hundreds if not thousands of people that I've interviewed, it had something to do with your genetics. Now, did you say you did a regression on this episode?
I had my own regression. I didn't have a hypnotist or anything, not anybody professional, but I had these dreams. I regressed dreams, I guess you can say, bits and pieces.
Okay.
But to figure out how the craft, it just dawned on me when I drew it. I guess when you start drawing things out, I think it comes back to you a little better. And I drew the craft in the southwest of my backyard, and actually the craft took off due west real fast. It was gone. And so it had to move a little bit, and we didn't see it move. So something tells me we were drawn up into the craft. And him.
Right, and you can recover thoughts, like you're saying. You can recover what happened. you don't have to go to a hypnotherapist. You can start drawing it or writing about it, and you'll get all this information. So you're saying you had a dream and you got further information. So let's just tell the story on the, based on the dream as if it was happening now. That's a technique to use. So you had this dream. You're having this dream. So tell us what unfolded in the dream.
Well, what unfolded is what I was just telling you. I only got bits and pieces where I was trying on the shirt that was too small for me, and I kept fighting it, and I don't remember putting on my shirt, in which was a little bit larger shirt, and I don't remember putting that on. And then I remember the craft heading out west. That's what my regress dreams showed me, and then I drew it out. And like you said, drawing something out or writing it out will kind of put it out there where your mind can understand it. And that's the only bits and pieces I got out of that, Janet, out of that situation. But what happened just a couple of months later is when I had that testicular implant. And that's when I kind of thought to myself, at the time when I was 14, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't draw any conclusions from that finding of that implant, but it looked like a little Advil tablet, and it was whitish, like an ash color, white, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't very big, and I saw a hole in my skin. It was like a quarter of an inch hole or whatever, and it was red. So what I did is I squeezed it back out of that hole, in which was red, and looked like a fresh cut, but I don't think it was, because I think it was a month or 2 months after I saw the UFO. So when I finally got the little, I guess, disc thing out, I put it in my palm, and I said, wow, how'd that come to be about? And I was 14, so I didn't understand anything, and it started turning brown as I was holding it. And I showed my mom, and she said, throw that old thing away. I told her where I got it from, and she says, well, it's probably an ingrown blackhead or something. I said, no, Mom. I said, even at that time, I told her, I said, no, there was a hole cut for it already. How could a hole be cut for it and going in, and the hole wasn't healed all the way up? It was still red, and it still opened up when I pushed the little implant out. So that's how I think you have to have, in every case, in any time that you have an experience, what happens is you got to find factual things that tie the whole event together. And when I had that little implant and I took it out and I found the hole there, that told me that yes, I was taken. My buddy didn't have any of that, and I don't even think I even discussed it with him at that time. We were so young. All we did was wanted to play and have fun. But that was the first incident, and we talked about genetics. Well, I've got Crow Indian in me, and they say that they trace Indians, American Indians. I got some Crow blood in me. I don't know, about 20% maybe, something like that. But my family, my grandma and my aunts, well, they kind of look like Crow Indians, to begin with, with long dark hair, and but they had a UFO experience. My mom told me in their backyard, and it had lights on it, just like the one that I was saying. And my mom told me this stuff. She's 91 now, and she remembers a lot of that stuff. She's still pretty sharp in her mind. But she told me they've had that experience of a UFO in their backyard, and her younger sister pointed it out. She said, "There's an airplane or something up, in the backyard, just hanging there." And so she said they didn't know back then, but she said that was a spaceship or a UFO. So yeah, I think there is a genetic thing. And my mom, even throughout her life, she said she has seen things walking in the hallway, and she's seen things, come to her bedside, and she couldn't explain what they were. She said they were kind of like tall, thin guys, and so she couldn't draw a conclusion because she didn't study or research these things. The old school people didn't do a lot of research of the UFOs. It wasn't a big thing back then, except for Roswell, and nobody really heard about Roswell until about the late 70s. But it was it's just kind of weird. As you know, I can ask why me, and then I went on to have other experiences, and believe it or not, I've had some weird experiences. I actually think it increased my IQ. When I took my test to enter into the military, I got such a high score that I was able to take anything I wanted. I could do any career in the military that I wanted. So right. I picked nuclear weapons, top secret. So I did that for a while, and I didn't like it. So I got out of that. I didn't flunk out. I just got out of it. I wanted to go, and they said, well, if you leave, then you might go to Vietnam. Well, my brother was getting orders for Vietnam. He was in the military the same time I was, and his wife was having a baby. So I said, no, you're not going. I'm going to go instead. So I volunteered, and I went to Vietnam. So I become an infantry sergeant there. So that's it's a long story there too. But it's kind of like it's you have to think about things as feelings. What did you feel? How did you feel about that? Was there a sensation? Was there something in your gut that tells you something happened strange? And that feeling I've had quite a few times. It's kind of like a magnetic energy that hits you, and it dumbs you down. You can't think or talk, and they more or less partially paralyze your mind and your speaking abilities. That's happened to me several times, and I wish that would have never happened, because I wish I could have communicated, in which in a couple of regressed dreams I did have a chance to say something to one of the ETs or aliens, a tall white, and I'll get into that story too later. But I went on, got real busy during my 20s and 30s. I played music. I went to school. I studied journalism. And that's why I like investigating. That's why I'm doing this now. I'm putting my own stories out there. Not stories. Let's call them experiences. If you call them stories, then they could be sci-fi. And these are not sci-fi, experiences. These are for real.
Right.
We don't want to get that mixed up. But no, it's.
I agree.
It's. I don't. Every time I start writing and I try to tell somebody what my experiences have been, I'll sometimes. Well, this is my story. Well, it's not my story. It's my experiences. So I want to get them out before I get too old where I can't get them out sensibly. I'd rather burn out than smoke out. So that's why I'm doing this now, Janet. Yeah. So we got somebody else on.
I hear you, and I'm writing my book too, and it's really hard because some of it's very emotional, and I'll talk about it, but there's something about the added level of writing about it. It's just wow, it's profound. So I applaud you, and I'm glad you're getting it out, and that's why I'm really here supporting people who want to come on my show and you want to talk about it, because we don't know, what day's our last day. We don't know when we're not going to be able to talk about it anymore. So we need to really be conscious about it and get it out there and document it. And maybe this will make more sense 20 years from now. But right now we have this phenomenon happening, and we're being contacted.
Right. I see there's a lot more activity with UFOs now than ever, and I'm wanting to learn more. I have to find out what happened to me, why. I sometimes pray to give me the knowledge and wisdom of what these mysterious events were. So to go on with that, I mean, it's just but like I said, the last 10 years was more intense. I've seen little things happen. I've seen orbs in the sky. I've seen 5 up-close UFOs, so I don't even count orbs anymore. I just think, oh, that's a UFO that's at a distance. But if you can't see it up close, then you really don't know if it's a UFO or not. So that's my understanding of it after I've seen 5 up close. So it makes a big difference in how you look at flying craft in the air, and right away if you see something that looks like an airplane with flashing lights, right away that's an airplane. You learn how to identify these objects I've had some MUFON training, I guess, about 10, 11 years ago as a field investigator, but that didn't really teach me anything until I really saw up-close UFOs and then orbs at a distance and looked at a lot of airplanes and tried to distinguish who was what and what was what. So I've learned that now. I can identify things pretty rapidly, and I know what they basically are. If they're an orb, I don't pay much mind to them. But to go on, I guess I've been fortunate to have a lot of smaller things. There's a lot of paranormal things that happen and occur with these UFO experiences, in which there's so many small things. I've got a 250-page ledger. It's plus 250 pages, and it's got a lot of small things that's happened to me. And I don't discuss a lot of the smaller things. I believe they're they're paranormal, and I understand a lot of experiencers. What they do is they hear about these paranormal activities, and then it kind of ties to UFO events. And sometimes they say paranormal activity follows UFO events or ET events. I don't know if you have
going on there. And I've had a lot of paranormal activity in my life too, a lot of it. Yeah. And so that makes me wonder, like, what's that about?
Right. Well,
I have
all
this paranormal activity.
Yeah, an Oxford professor just come out here lately saying that aliens are invisible. And why wouldn't they be invisible? They're so advanced. We're starting to have invisible cloaks and everything. So they say that I guess aliens are invisible. And there's a couple of times that I can attest to that. I come from a UFO convention back in 2011, I believe it was, and I had a buddy with me, and we drove down together to Arkansas at Eureka Springs. And we come back, and he stayed overnight at my place so he can fire my Winchester rifle. He just wanted to shoot a John Wayne gun. I said, okay, we'll do that. So, but something happened to him in the other bedroom that he was sleeping in, my spare bedroom. He didn't tell me for 3 or 4 months later, and I asked him, I said, why didn't you tell me? What happened to him one night was something solid ran across his feet and his leg, and he said it kind of moved his foot and his leg, and he said it was solid. He said it wasn't a ghostly or anything. He was a ghost hunter before he became a researcher in UFOs, so he knew about ghosts, and he knew. I guess the solidity of a ghost is a mist sometimes, and you can just walk right through it or they disappear. But this, he said, was solid. So he said it was not a ghost. And he told me, he said, I didn't want to scare you. I said, you should have told me. I said, I know I had the same experience in an abduction, one of my biggest abductions. I've never had any pain except for one night or early morning. Something grabbed my foot and bent my foot down, and I jumped, and it hurt my big toe. And I didn't stub my toe on the footboard or anything like that. It wasn't close to it, my foot. So these things, they're physical. So could they be invisible ETs? Yes. He could be definitely right. Yeah. That's something that I think everybody needs to think about too. And maybe this paranormal or this poltergeist activity is from ETs, possibly. That's
right,
something
I had ghosts all my life, and piecing it together as an adult, I'm going, was that ghost or was that ET? So where is that? How do we? So you're saying this guy? What did this guy recently came up with? What? Say that again. And he came up with some research.
Yeah, he was into UFO research just like me, and we went to the conventions together. Matter of fact, there was 4 of us, and all 4 of us was named Dave, so we had to go D1, D2, D3, D4. One of the Daves that I hung out with, you might know, Dave Marler. He's a specialist in the triangle-shaped UFO, and he gives a lot of speeches, and at a lot of the conferences. And he's a friend of mine.
M-A-R-L-E-R?
M-A-R-L-E-R, yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
L-E-R, uh-huh.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
but anybody that wants to come on and we can interview him. I like getting all the pieces of the puzzle, So,
right, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think another thing that I've been doing, the more I've been discussing aliens and UFOs, I think I like to express the feelings of it and how I felt and what happened to me during that time. I think that makes it more real to other people also when they can understand how you felt. It's because a lot of these experiences, I guess over 50% of them, are one-on-one experiences. I wasn't with anybody. I've only had witnesses to, I think, 1, 2, 3 incidents. And I've had a lot of incidents, experiences. So to describe a one-on-one incident or experience to people is really hard to do because a lot of them may not believe you. They may roll their eyes or they may think about it. And they say, a lot of times what they'll say, why you and not me? I've heard that before too. So, and I spoke to Linda Moulton Hall one time, and she interviewed me for about 45 minutes plus. And the reason why she interviewed me is she was doing a psychological workup on me. And she's a journalist, and I studied journalism, and so I knew what she was doing. And at the end of it, I said, Linda, I know what you were doing. You were doing a cross-examination of the questions to find out if I'm for real or not. I said, what did you find out? She said, you're for real. She said, and you're going to have a hard time out there explaining your. She said, if you had one event, she said that's different, but you've had several events, and she said that's going to be really hard to explain. Not too many people see 5 up-close UFOs, but I have, and I can describe what they look like and everything. So, but it's hard, it's difficult to discuss it. Like you were saying earlier, when you start writing these things down, you get very emotional. When I write them down, I feel like I'm putting it on paper. That way I can kind of let go of it for a while and not let it bother me. I haven't had any really terrifying experiences with abductions. Only that
I don't think mine are emotional. It's almost like I missed them.
Yeah.
It's like this family or something, and it's like, oh, like I miss them.
Yeah.
I miss them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had that experience?
I'd like to find out more. Matter of fact, one of my big, I guess, experiences I've had, I might talk about that a little later, I've had out in Sedona. I've had several experiences in Sedona, Arizona. I'd like to try to make it back out there soon and see what it's all about. I'm talking to a guy now that I met on the internet in the UFO pages that he knows a little bit about hybrids, and he says there's quite a few of them out there, and they train to be human beings, and they try to work with real human beings. They look like human beings. I know I've seen a couple of them, and I know they're real. They look like human beings, and all they miss are they're a little bit awkward and backward about emotions, and they don't know emotions too well. And so, is that somebody else coming in, Janet?
Oh, I think somebody's trying to call me. Sorry, I don't hear it, but you might hear it. Yeah,
I hear it.
Let me double check. Let me double check if. Yeah, that's right. Let me check and see. No, TJ didn't show up on the show, so it's just the two of us. That's okay. We're having fun. Okay. So.
But,
so you were saying that. Go back to what you were saying. I was fascinated.
Well, I got disrupted there.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I think I was talking about emotions and feelings, and I almost got electrocuted one time. I never felt some people, I guess especially women, they might be more physically I guess, not attacked, but examined, where a man isn't. And I can tell you how much I probably get examined. They probably take blood samples, and I know they've taken semen samples from me. I actually kind of saw that in a regressed dream twice. It's happened to me. And so when I get to the story of this hybrid in Sedona, it might start making sense, the connection. So here's another thing I don't know about. What's the time out there in another dimension? If they come through dimensions, what time, does time really matter to them? I had one hybrid turn to me, and I asked her how old she was. And she says, why everybody worry about age? And I said, I'm talking like her because she was an Asian Japanese hybrid, and she was concerned about me worrying about age or years. And so apparently, from where she's been at or whatever, where she come from, she probably didn't worry about years. They must have plenty of years where they come from. I've seen movies where you fly to one planet or to another galaxy that you I guess the Einstein theory of relativity and the speed of light and all that, you don't age any, and the people back here on Earth age. If you're gone, like you might think you're gone just 5 years, you come back, you've been gone 50 years. So is there a time thing about all this too when they come in? I think also that I ran into one Asian. I'm almost sure I didn't get a chance to really get to know this guy. He was also a Japanese hybrid, but he told me, he says, a lot of aliens believe in reincarnation. And I was kind of stunned. And I sat there and I said, whoa, he must know something. And so I didn't get a chance to talk to him much after that. But it's kind of, you get these bits and pieces from these people, and when you see things, it seems like these events go by so fast that you don't have time to get your camera or anything. It's how fast it happens.
Yeah, they don't want you taking pictures.
What's that?
That's for sure. They don't want you taking pictures for the most part.
Yeah, that's right. And also, if you're working or if you're seeing dimensional people, they won't turn and look you in the face. I've had that happen to me a couple of times. One time in Sedona, I can tell you this little story. It may have something to do with ETs. I don't know. I was sitting on the front of the porch of the lodge that I was staying in, and here drives up an old Chevy Impala station wagon, and it looked like early '60s, and I sat there and I watched a woman get out of the driver's side, and a man get out of the passenger side. He goes to the back door, opens it up. He gets this little girl that's about 4 or 5 years old, and she's on a dog leash. And he goes and sets at this bench. Yeah, and the dog leash was all studded with little stones of some kind. And I turned around and looked, and I thought, that's not right, but I didn't do nothing about it because I was kind of dumbed down in the situation. I was in their world. I wasn't in mine, it seemed like. And this guy never turned and looked at me at the bench. But the little girl looked at me. She had short blonde hair, real pale skin, and a real thin face, and she had sparkling blue eyes. And she wore a 1950s type little dress that the little girls wore, and she had little white shoes on. And she was kicking her feet in the gravel, and I heard a dog barking, and I thought, there's no dog here. Where's the dog? And it was that little girl. She turned and looked at me, and she barked like a dog. And I thought to myself, this is weird. And something told me, I just got up. I guess I was being told what to do. And I went in my room. I sat on the edge of the bed, and I kind of come out of it. I said, that's illegal. You can't have a little girl on a dog leash. I went out there to get this guy straightened out, and they were gone. I mean, poof, just gone. And I walked into the manager. I walked to the manager's office. I asked him, "Did you take care of did you just check in a woman and a guy with a little girl on a dog leash?" He looks at me and says, "What in the world are you talking about?" "No," he said. I said, "Oh my God." And I was awake. This was about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was awake. Sun was shining. I wasn't sleeping. I might have been dumbed down, but I wasn't sleeping. But yeah, it's so I've seen little things. Yeah, if you go to Sedona, you're bound to see these things. And this guy that I'm talking to is real interesting, but he seems not to relate to me too well. Like he doesn't want to give me a lot of information. He said he was appointed as gatekeeper in Sedona, and he's been there 20 years. And I thought, and he said he's met several hybrids, and he said he knows all their behaviors and what they're doing there. And I said, "You're the guy I want to talk to." And I told him about the one that I ran into, the hybrid there, and he goes, "Oh wow." He says I can tell you some stories about these people. He said, "I know who they are and I know where they're at." I said, "I'd love to talk to you," but he seems like he's backing off. He's afraid I'm getting too much information. He's just kind of backing off a little bit. So some people are like that. They don't want to give away their secrets, or maybe they're afraid to. I don't know. But I can talk about my experiences, but I don't try to include.
Let's continue with yours. Yeah, I mean,
right.
It's all part of your experience because you've witnessed it. But and I don't think we're going to come up with an explanation for this. All we can do is look at the mystery. We have this giant mystery, and there's you and everybody else, and we're all getting pieces of this puzzle, and we're collecting them, and we're putting them together now, and we're talking about it like we've never had before. And it's not just Betty and Barney Hill. It's like there's something really weird going on here. But yeah, you had a lot of different incidences. Let's continue with your timeline. So, what do you want about next in your personal timeline?
Okay, I have all my notes and the what happened. Another time, I saw this triangular ship. It was huge, and this was on April 9th, 8:30 in the evening, and it was cloudy, like it's going to rain. I was sitting outside. It was a really nice day. I was sitting outside on the porch, and I was talking to my brother, and I saw 2 big bright lights coming from the north heading towards my house. And I told my brother, "I'm going to have to hang up." I said, I'm looking at something here weird. And I stood there in the driveway, and this huge craft, it was kind of a gray color metal, and it was kind of black and gray. I don't know, couldn't really tell the color because the clouds might have been reflecting on it. But this ship was only about 70 feet or 60 feet in the air because it clipped a tree across the street. And it come over me, that's 60, 70 feet, almost about the same as this other UFO I saw. And this thing made a hissing, buzzing sound. I looked right up underneath of it. It went right over me. I looked up in the front. I saw a big glass globe hanging down. One of those old-fashioned glass globes that you use to cover light bulbs. And it was about 15 feet long, looked about 6 feet wide. And it was actually in the place where the light is usually at in the front, in the nose of the craft. There are usually 3 lights in a triangle. And I saw that the back 2 lights, they were lit up, but the front one wasn't. It just had this globe hanging down. And that's the only thing I can't figure out about this craft. What was that globe? What was its purpose? And why was it there? I guess I centered on it. Then I looked on the rest of the belly of it, and there was a huge vent. It looked like a huge barbecue grill, whatever. It must have been about 25, 30 feet wide in diameter, and it was just like a lot of small vent, I guess barbecue grills, what I could call it. But that was what was making the hissing sound or the buzzing sound. And then right behind it was a little red light, and then the 2 huge bright white lights, in which is the propulsion system. These lights are propulsion systems. What they do is they stir up a magnetic energy, and which makes the craft anti-gravity. Gravity doesn't have any effect on it, so they can just do what they want, go where they want, and go as fast as they want, I guess. And this thing went over me, and I looked at it as it left me over my shoulder, and I thought, oh my God, again, why me? Why am I seeing this?
Mm-hmm.
But then my mom just lived down the street from me, about 5 houses down, and my 2 brothers were there, and they saw the same thing. I said, great, I got witnesses. So I said, I got witnesses on this one, So that was great for me. That my mom said she didn't want to step out on the porch because she was afraid she was going to be abducted. And I said, well, I don't think you'd worry about that. The ship was going somewhere else. It wasn't stopping in our neighborhood. So, and anyway, a triangular ship wouldn't be. They say that, well, that could be one of our military craft. I said, no, you can't have a huge craft. This craft was as long as the street. It was about 5 or 6 houses wide, and it was just huge. And I said, no, a military craft would not fly that low in a neighborhood, in a populated neighborhood. They don't do that. Military craft, they don't do any test flying over populated areas. Not that I know of, but it doesn't make sense. And a craft that huge would have to have some other type of propulsion system to hold it up, to stay aloft. So there was a huge. I called the police station, asked if anybody else saw it, and they said no. And they got my number, and they said they'd call me in case somebody else saw it, but I never got any other reports. But my mom and 2 brothers saw it, and I was happy about that. So it's that was.
Well, I want to look at what your mom said. Your mom said, "I don't want to be abducted." So
right.
Usually, when someone says something like that, they're remembering that they were abducted.
Right. That she's had some.
That's somewhere
she's had
in
some
her.
dealings.
Yeah.
Right. She's had some dealings with them, and I told her about my abductions, in which she believed. None of my family disbelieves me, because all my family, most of them, 3 or 4 of my brothers, have seen UFOs, and so they're believers. Only one is a kind of a skeptic, and he hasn't seen one yet. But that's that it's in the family. I don't know why. Like we were talking about, is it DNA? They follow DNA, or is it something that were marked from years ago, or is it are they following Indian blood? In which I think early on in the U.S. or the Americas, they had a lot to do with the Indians, the Maya, the Inca, and also the American Indian. No doubt has seen these people, and they call them ant people and all this other stuff. And I've been out to New Mexico and places of that nature. I went out searching for this stuff, and I had a couple of buddies who write ghost books and everything here in Springfield, and they told me that I'm a brave soul after being through some of the things I've seen and done, and I go out searching for them out west. And that's what I do. I go out west, and I'll go to New Mexico, and I go to Arizona, and I try to find them. But believe it or not, I've never seen a UFO out west, except for high up with third generation binoculars, the infrared binoculars, and I've seen the orbs up high. That's about most I've seen out west. I've seen all my UFOs here right in Illinois. And I've seen all 5 of them here in Illinois. Then the next craft, I'll just go to the one craft or the other. The next craft looked like a smaller saucer. It had a dark center to it, a round center, and which looked like about maybe 15 feet in diameter. And around it was 4, looked like pie cuts, plates. They're glass, actually glass, because they were lit up white. And I guess that was the propulsion system on the bottom of this craft. The whole craft looked like a pie cut up with a dark ring in the middle. And when I saw this thing, sometimes they tell you to be somewhere. Yes, you'll be told something. Like I was told to go to Springfield, Illinois, and I was listening to a couple of friends of mine in their band, and I had some weird things going on, and this gal that's with the group that I usually hang out with paranormal stuff, she was standing there, and she said she felt something, and I told her that, I said, I'm supposed to be here, and I said, I don't know, I'd come to listen to you guys, but I was also told to be here. So when I got down there about an hour and a half, it was getting to be late, so I left, and I went out back to get in my car. I saw, and this could be, I don't know, I saw this gal, about 25. She was kind of blonde-headed, and she was rushing to get something out of the console, and she looked up at me as I was getting in my car and leaving, like she was getting that object out for me. I don't know, I was a little afraid. So, but I wasn't that afraid. But I drove away, and when I went through town, I must have really made a time, because there's about 15 stoplights there in Springfield coming out of the middle of it and going back on the highway on 55. And I stopped at all these stoplights. It seemed like it seemed like time was sped up. And that's when down the road, that's when I ran into that UFO, the one that is shaped like a pie at the bottom. It was bright. I thought it was a street light on the side. It's a 4-lane interstate, and I thought it was coming from the south to the north. I was going south, and I thought it was just a bright street light, but then it started moving, and I looked at it. I was about maybe a couple of miles away at that time, and I kept watching it, and it was just a really bright light, and then it come up close, and I said, oh my, what's that? It crossed right over my car. I looked up out of my window, and I saw the bottom of it, and I thought, again, why me? Why did they cross over me? There was about another 7 or 8 vehicles on the road right where I was at. And again, I asked that question.
They like
you. Apparently, yeah. They've had their fun, I guess, scaring me most of my life. But yeah, I saw that, and I got home. Usually it takes an hour and 40 minutes to get from Springfield to my home in southern Illinois, but I made it in about an hour and 10 minutes. So somewhere along the line, I missed 30 minutes. I accelerated 30 minutes. And I wasn't driving fast either, not that I know of. I was driving the speed limit, but time just moved up. It's something, when I pulled in the driveway, I looked at my watch. I said, "Oh, no way! I left Springfield at 10:30, and here it was 11:30, just a little past 11:30." I said, "No way! I can't do that, especially after going through all them lights." So I had a feeling of time was sped up during that moment that UFO crossed over me. So that's kind of a feeling you get. You get this. I had a scientific friend of mine tell me, and she was really good about. She was a researcher in UFOs and crop circles, and she was real good at explaining certain things. And she explained to me that she said when you feel really tired and really drugged down, and your stomach has butterflies in it, she said that's when you're being hit by magnetic energy, and they hit you with magnetic energy to put you under control, so they can control you. Don't grab a stick, don't grab a ball bat, don't grab your camera, don't worry about anything. Everything's okay. So far, they haven't done anything to me to hurt me, but they put a couple of implants in me that I know, and I was almost electrocuted a couple of times. I'll get into my fourth craft. I saw this craft at an oil refinery. I was a lead man, and I worked in the oil refinery there. And I was inspecting the towers and things, and I was up on this 15th deck level, and I saw coming from the east a shiny object that was flying fairly low. I'd say probably 150 feet, because I was probably 100 feet or so up in the air where I was at. And I saw this object coming, and it was moving and everything. And when it got closer to me, it looked like a drone or a small a glider, but it was all metal, all metallic, didn't have a cockpit, it only had one dorsal fin straight up, and it had two short wings like. And I thought, no way, no, that can't be. It can't fly like that low over a refinery, because a refinery is a restricted area for aircraft. So this thing was flying in a restricted area. So, and then it flew by me, and then it went south, and I watched it go south. I called the guys in the control room. I said, you guys need to take a look at this thing. And then he said, there he goes again, Dave, with those wild UFO stories. so
you got a reputation, Dave.
Yeah, I know. It was a reputation there. But a couple of nights later, though, here's what they left for me. This craft, whatever it was, put an idea or something in my head in which I dreamed a couple of nights later. It was about the plant closing. And these guys, they were putting millions of dollars in renovating the plant. And I told the guys, I said, I had this real vivid dream that the plant's going to close. I said, within a few months. They said, oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. They're putting in $2 million in just our unit alone. I said, no, it's closing. And so they just wrote it off. They laughed at me. And so they said, oh, it's one of those UFO things. I said, maybe. But it was real. So 4 or 5 months later, the plant did close. The whole plant closed. And I didn't get a chance to see them because I was off. I just had back surgery, and I was off when they closed the plant. But I had this dream where I was walking around in the unit, and I was inspecting the machinery and going from one place to another. And then I didn't hear any noise because refinery is pretty noisy. You got to wear earplugs. So it was real quiet. I walked in the control room, and I thought we were down. I thought the whole unit was down. No lights were on. It was all dark in there. And I thought I had an eerie feeling. And then I woke up, and I said, something's going to happen in the refinery. And it did. So they will put things in your mind. They can control us. They can actually bring up dead relatives to you, which I'll tell you here a few minutes.
Oh, I'd like to hear about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess I'm doing a lot of talking here. I'm
enjoying it.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
No, you're talking about this refinery, and they were going to close it.
Right.
Right. Okay.
What's that? Yeah.
So they're telling you they're going to close it. And what was the significance of telling you that they're going to close it?
I'm not sure.
To show that you're
I think. Yeah, I think what they're doing is letting you know that they scanned you. They know all about you, and they implanted this dream in you, in which was they were throwing me in time a few months, throwing me up in time for a few months in this dream, and letting me know what was going to happen in the near future. And so whatever these craft are, they know how to control time. They know where you're going to be. When they have these meetups with you, I call them meetups in a way because they know where you're going to be. These ETs, UFOs, they have control of time. They have control of our minds. They can put things in our mind. They can actually extract things from our minds, and they do a lot of that too. And that I felt in my last UFO sighting, the last close-up UFO sighting. I was told to go to this movie. I didn't even like the movie, but something in my mind kept telling me, go to this movie, go to this movie. So I went to that movie. So I come back out, and I come home, and I was on this Highway 255 coming northwest, and I saw this bright light on the other side of the highway following me. It was keeping time with me. And I wondered, what's this? It was a bright, long light, but it could have been one of those saucer-shaped UFOs that just had the bright lights on the bottom, and it was following me. And then all of a sudden, I felt really tired. I felt really weak, so I knew what that was. So I pulled off the road because I didn't want to drive like that. So I pulled off the side of the road because I didn't want to drive. And then whatever happened, it come over me, this craft, and I saw the bright light, but I didn't see the craft because it was so bright. I couldn't make out the details. And what they were doing, apparently, this was, an assumption. All I knew is I felt real weak. I felt nauseous, and it was uploading from me, taking information from me, and just, I guess, following me and picking up my brain waves. And then I sat there for about 5 minutes after that. I finally came to myself, and then I took off again in my car, and I said, wow, what another experience that was. So, but during this time also.
Yeah. Well, you're indicating that there's some kind of agenda for all this. So you're saying that they put ideas in our heads, they're downloading, they're uploading.
Right.
So you're a real contactee. You're not something they took once, and so you're selected. You made the finals. Yeah. You're not the semi-finalist. You're it, and your family is it. And the same happened to me. Okay, so I can totally relate to what you're talking about. And then your whole life is a mystery because you're not given a lot of information. Now, mine shifted where I started they started to tell me more, but they still never give you the 100%, like here's what's going on. But
they won't.
Did it ever shift, or are you still in the mystery?
Am I what? I didn't catch that last.
Did they ever start shifting and telling you more about what's going on? Or
no.
Are you still left pretty much in a mystery? Okay, so let's
it's a mystery. Yeah, I've had some regressions that were very vivid, and I can get to those also. This all comes together in a lengthy from 2009 until about 2015. I was really hammered, I guess, during those years with the UFO experiences and the little things that accompany it. And it's in my ledger, like the orbs in my house that my night cameras picked up, trail cams picked up, that type of thing. But those are little things. I'll get the major, I guess, events out of the way. But my neighbors, about that same time, there was a couple that I knew both my neighbors really well, and one of them told me that they saw a bright light in their backyard, and that was right next to my backyard. And they said it made some kind of a noise, vibrating, and they said they was both so afraid that they just cuddled up in their bed and didn't want to look outside. They didn't want to look out to see what it was. And apparently it must have been one of my visitations, or they visited me, and my neighbors saw this, and they come out and told me. They said, "Did you hear a strange noise or bright lights?" I said, "No." I said, "I was probably a victim of those bright lights. I don't know." But my other neighbor also told me that he saw a bright light come down in my backyard. He said the light was probably about 5 feet wide, and he said he couldn't tell how long it was because he couldn't look up out of the window. But he said he watched it. He said it was weird, and he didn't tell me until a month or two later. Also, he said, which reminds me. He said, "I've seen something strange in your backyard." I said, "Well, this has been a strange, time for me anyway." I said, and he told me about it. It's about 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning when he said he saw it out his back window. And he went to the bathroom, looked out his back window, and saw that light in my backyard. Then my brother-in-law and my sister, which lived down the other end of the road that I lived on, they said they saw a tall man dressed in black with a black hat and a long black coat that was really fluttering in the wind because it seemed like a storm was coming up. And I didn't see this man in black, but they did. And my brother-in-law was very skeptical about anything paranormal. So, but he told me he saw it. He said, "I have to admit, Dave, I did see it. I did see this tall black guy, not black guy, but black, dressed in black, men in black." My sister and my mom saw it from her vantage point, from her front porch, and they couldn't figure out what that was, and they told me. So there's things around me that other people have seen that I haven't seen, but like I said, I probably got the dirty end of the stick of those deals. So I don't know.
So the men in black, what were they dressed in? Were they dressed
long black?
Long black. Go ahead.
Long black coat, one of those trench coats, and a black hat, they said. And his pants were black. So it was kind of like
what was the
black.
hat like? What was the hat like?
I don't know. They didn't tell me. I didn't see it. My brother-in-law, my sister, and my mom saw this thing standing out near my back fence, and they said that they saw it, but they didn't tell me. They didn't give me real details about the hat. It was just the trench coat and the black pants,
and
they said it was wearing a black hat. So I don't know. They saw it. I didn't.
You don't know.
But everything usually happened around my house. That's what I'm getting at, and that's why maybe I've had several abductions there at my house. So I've had a couple of real abductions that I'll never forget. I had the first time I talked to Dr. David Jacobs about this too, one time at an ES meeting in Arkansas. That's Eureka Springs, and I talked to him about it. And I said, "Have you, Doctor? I know you've interviewed thousands of people that's been abducted." I said, "Have you ever talked to anybody that felt like they got electrocuted and there was a lot of static that was made a real loud noise?" He said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Quite a few." He said, "Why, did you have that?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "One time they must have really got me because they paralyzed me." And I said, "The other time I pushed my shoulder and I fought it back." And he looks at me and he laughs. He said, "You didn't fight it off. They were already done with you." So I said, "Okay." Wow. So I was really wrong. I didn't push him back, and I told him to leave. He said, "No, they were done with you. They were bringing you back." And but the first time I had this shock, I was laying in bed. It was about 10:30. I had this really severe cold in my chest, and I thought I had bronchitis, of course, and I thought it was turning into pneumonia, and I was going to go to the doctor early the next morning. And I was laying there about 10:30, 11 o'clock. I was trying to go to sleep, and I was laying there with my hand off to the side of the bed, and I felt a real shock that hit my index finger on my right hand, and it made a real loud popping sound, and I thought the finger was blown off. I turned the light on, looked at my finger, and it was still there, and I said, "My God, what was that?" And my hand was not close to any clocks, no radios, no lamps, wasn't close to anything electrical. It just almost popped my finger off. And I thought that was weird. And then there's some paranormal things going on at the same time. They piled my shoes on top of each other, and I know I didn't do it. Next to my bed, I had two pairs of shoes, and they piled these things on top of each other just to let me know we were here, you were asleep, you don't know anything. Maybe it's their way of maybe they have a little bit of comedic expressions or whatever. But
jokes.
Yeah. but
yeah.
No. But the largest one this was a huge. This is where I know the feeling now. And I had this feeling the other night too, and I think the wife even had it. I felt very tired, very drug out, and that's when they're starting to work on you. What happened one day? It was about 1:30 in the afternoon. The sun was shining. I was on my computer doing some work or something on it, and then I walked out of the computer room, and I was really exhausted. I felt really tired, so I went into the bedroom to rest my back. I've had back surgery, so I went and rested. And I was laying there with I was laying on my elbow, and I was looking out the front, out my bedroom door, and the sun was shining really bright. And then all of a sudden, I heard this static sound right behind me, and it was really loud next to my bed. I turned around to take a look at what it was, and all of a sudden, it hit me in the right shoulder. And when it hit me, it paralyzed me. I couldn't move, and it kept shocking me, and my body was kind of shaking. And I felt this shock, and my eyes were wide open. I could look out the door, but I couldn't move anything else. And every time I tried to move, it would hit me with another jolt. And it was. I knew it was them because of all the other incidents that happened prior to that. This was in 2011 also when this happened. And I'm gonna get 2011 and 2012 mixed up. If I look at my charts I got in a folder. Someday I'm going to get all those out. Matter of fact, I I got a lot of pictures that I've written down that I want to copy and put in another file, so I can show those, or as backup for some of the things that has happened. But going on to this, the biggest I think event that I've ever had was that I felt so electrified that I couldn't move, and then I heard my sister's voice. She's been dead 4 years before this. She died of cancer. Yeah, it was her voice. And I used to call her Sissy. She said, Dave, you can do it. Come on, you can do it. I said, do what, Sissy? Do what? She said, you can do it. I said, come to the door so I can see you. And she said, I can't. It sounded like she was out in the hall from where her voice sounded. And she said, I can't. I said, come to the doorway, please. She said, I can't. And then I got hit by another jolt of that electricity, and I thought, well, I better keep my mouth shut. So her voice went away, and then there was my fingers in my left hand. It was up against the headboard when I was leaning on my elbow, and I can move my fingers a little bit, and they drop a baby's hand in my finger grasp, and I was able to pull down on the fingers, and they felt human. It was a human hand. I felt the palm and the little fingers like a baby. I said, oh, my God, what is this? I said, what kind of abduction is this? And then something heavy set by me. I could feel it. It was physical. It sat right next to my hip, and I thought I was going out of my mind then. And then I just yelled out, jumped up, and whatever was there took off. It was gone. And I think they were done with me, but they were just toying with me a little bit to show me that they're in control. They can do anything they want. And what they did is they took my sister's voice out of my memory banks, and they can do this. So I've heard other people talking about this, that they can extract your memory and use that memory against you or for you, mainly against you, I guess. But then I just got up, and I was so shook up, I was so afraid. I walked around the hallway, and I would call up my scientific friend, and I talked to her about it, and then she told me, she said, well, I can't discuss it, but I just investigated the case with a woman and her daughter who had a similar experience where they heard a lot of static shock, and they were kind of like electrocuted, and they couldn't move, and they couldn't look around or anything. They were just frozen. And I said, yeah, that's what mine was all about. So I get some comfort in finding out other people have seen and done these things. But that was a huge one. But I guess then, like I said, a lot of little paranormal things happen, like shoes being stacked, or they play with things. Or I had a amber amulet that I put in a Facebook thing. It disappeared. It was a picture, and I wrote a short story on it. It disappeared on a Thursday morning, and I wore it as a good luck charm. Whoever got it took it off my chain, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I stripped the bed down, the sheets and the pillow, and I took the pillowcase and looked under the bed all around. I couldn't find it anywhere, and I was just curious. It wasn't that it worth so much. It was just I was curious what happened to it. Where'd it go? So I kind of thought, well, I'll run into it somewhere, somehow. 3 days later, on a Saturday morning, I get up out of bed, and I actually washed my face and brushed, and then I went to the mirror, and I combed my hair, and when I brushed my hair, it fell out of my hair. And it fell out of my hair. And
oh, my God.
Yeah, that's what I said. I had chills go up my spine. I said, oh, what a place to find this thing. They wadded it up in my hair. I had a little bit longer hair then. But no, but those are the smaller paranormal things you run into. They call those apports or apports, whatever it's referred to.
Oh, apports.
That they come in from another dimension, and they leave things, I got some little plastic discs that they left for me. I don't know how much time. Am I running the clock out here? Any questions? I know I got a big mouth, Janet.
9 after the first hour. It's like 10 minutes into the second hour. I'm just I'm fascinated by what you're saying. You've got all these different things now. The Apports, I had one time where I had this favorite watch that an ex-boyfriend gave me, and he had died, and so I was in an ex-relationship. And it was my favorite watch because it was the only thing I had left of him. And I took it off to the bed, and I always put it right by my computer. You know, I had a little thing to put all my jewelry in, right? And it was absolutely gone. It was gone. I went back and where is it? Where is it? So I spent hours, and my husband searched, and we looked everywhere. And so that was the next day, and I finally went to bed. I gave up, and I came down the next morning, and it was, and I had lifted up the keyboard 100 times. I moved everything. It was hanging out from under the keyboard like a little, you know, the little tail, the little one side. It was just a tail, and I came down and go, what the? It was not there. It was like, oh, somebody has, you know, a sense of humor.
Right.
They're screwing with it, right? They're just screwing with it. But I am so curious because you were just like, you know, I mean, there aren't many of your level where you're a lifelong spirit. So there's a lot of people where they have episodes, but you're almost like the ambassador level, although they're not giving you the conscious memories, but you're definitely a selected one, very selected by extraterrestrials. And I'm just wondering if you in your own mind, and you have a very high IQ, and I find myself figuring things out at night. So I'll, you know, it's like I said, honey, my supercomputer was crunching away last night, and I'll come up with some hypotheses, some theories about what's going on. Now, you've had this going on for how many years now? You're 70.
Right. I've had it going on since I was 14.
Time.
Yeah, but I didn't remember a lot of the things in the 70s and 80s because I played music, went to school. I kept too busy for the ETs. I think that's the thing you got to do is you got to keep really busy to keep them off your back. No, I'm just joking about that, but I didn't really have any memorial. You know, I didn't have any memory for a lot of things back in the 70s and 80s. The 90s, I started having these things come back with me, but they might have been with me all along. I just didn't notice it. But I had one night in 96, I believe it was 96, where I thought my daughter walked across the mirror in our bedroom. My wife and I was in the bed in our bedroom. I thought she walked into our medicine cabinet in our bathroom off of our main bedroom, and I thought it was her. So I got up on my elbow, and I use my elbow a lot. I guess I'm used to, you know, going to the bar or drinking a beer, but I don't drink that much. I'm just kidding. But I haven't really drank that much ever since I've had these experiences, to tell you the truth. They're more spiritual in a way than they are anything. And do I feel privileged in seeing and having these things happen to me? Yes, I do. And I want to express to people that it's more spiritual. It lets me know that there's another side to life. There's another dimension. So people that might be listening that think that God and religion is dead, it's really not. Religion, not so much, but spirituality. There is a heavy spirituality of us going from this dimension to another dimension. So I've been there, and I've done that. I've crossed over several times, and through these abductions. So it's kind of, yeah, like I feel privileged. Yes.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel blessed.
I can tell you how they erase your mind, Janet.
Okay.
They messed up one night. They didn't get everything out of my memory. This was when I was in Sedona with this Japanese hybrid, and that's another story to itself. I spent 20 hours with an alien, I can almost say. And I know now what they do to erase your memory. I was in my room at this lodge, and I had this regressed dream that they was in between my groin, and they had this brown tube that was going into my groin. So I took my knee and tried to kick it away, and then I just went out again. and I guess they just hit me with another little blast of energy. But what I regressed, that part of it I regressed, but there's another part that was very key, just like that big glass globe on this triangle craft. To me, those are key observations that I haven't heard too many people talk about. But when I got up the next morning, I knew something had happened before I met this Japanese hybrid for another day of going out sightseeing. And but I regressed in that room. I went back the next following year, and I asked the manager, I said, give me that same room. So what I did is just like we talked about earlier, draw it out, whatever. But I went in there and took pictures. I took pictures of the sliding doors, took pictures of where I was at in the bed. I took pictures of the walk that I had, and I looked at when I got them on my computer, I looked at it. Actually, that brought my memory back to when I saw the pictures of the room. That's strange, but it does. It triggered some kind of a regression response. I had this vivid dream that I was walking back and forth in the room. It was only probably about a 15, 17-foot walk, actually, and somebody had me by the arm, my left arm, and somebody was on the right of me, and that person had about a 6 or 7 inch real bright light. It was shaped like a fluorescent tube, except it was really bright. They kept running it up and down my face and in my eyes, and it hurt my eyes. And I kept turning my head, and they kept turning me to the light. And then they went up and down, and I saw somebody sitting to the side of me, in which very well could have been that Japanese gal hybrid that was sitting there at the table, and she had these 2 other people doing this to me, erasing my memory. And the bright light hurt my eyes, but I think they must have been maybe not really pros at it, but I had this regressed dream in which I regressed all that information in that room, in which I have the privilege of seeing how they do it to your memory. It's kind of like, you ever seen the Men in Black movies? It's kind of like that. They flash the light on you, just a flash. But this here, they took it up and down. They scrolled it up and down my face and in my eyes. And why they had to walk me, I don't know. Maybe it was some way to keep in my blood flow or something. They know more about our body than we do, I think. And they kept walking me and doing that to me, back and forth. And that's how they attempted to erase my memory. They probably erased a lot of it, but they didn't get some of them bits and pieces. But yeah, that's another thing. Also, another abduction case. I don't think it tied in with these ones I got shocked with, but this was another one. I had a vivid dream. When I have dreams like this, I know they're coming from somewhere. They're very vivid. Right. Yeah. And they have some facts. Yeah. They have facts to them. You can kind of weed out the facts. But this dream that I had, they walked me to my front door, and my front door is a metal door with insulation in it. So they walked me to it, and they was going to walk me through the door. And I thought to myself, no, I can't. I'll hurt my head. I was thinking like a human at that point, and I said, no, I can't. It's going to hurt my head if I walk through there. So what I did is I took my right arm, and I pushed it. I went through the door, and my hand and arm was sticking out the door. And I turned around and looked who was behind me, but I didn't see anybody. And then I felt a lot of intense heat on my arm, right where the door was at, where the metal was hitting my arm, and a lot of energy. I guess they speed up your frequencies to get you through. They say your frequencies have to really be your body frequency. They speed them up so much that you can walk through anything, and that's what they do. So I was hurting. My arm was burning and hurting, so I decided I better go through. So I finished going through the door, and then after that, I don't remember anything. So that's another regressed part of one of those abductions, and I'm not quite sure which one it fits. You have so many bits and pieces coming at you, you don't know which one fits which time or place. I know this little.
Yeah, that's confusing.
Yeah, I know this little green guy that come up to me. I didn't even finish that story. I'm sorry. I'm rattling on. I'm looking at the time, and I'm rattling on about. But I had to finish this where my daughter went in and got. I thought it was her, And I kept yelling out her name, and it wasn't her. And here come this shadow around the side of my bed. And it was dark in the room. And I turned and looked at him, and it was a little green guy. I mean, he didn't look like the little perfect skin grays that you see in the shops or in the stores. He had some wrinkles. I mean, he was really wrinkled. And his eyes didn't have the black patches on them. I could actually see some white of his eye, and he had real big pupils. And I thought, well, he doesn't look like a typical gray. He looks weird. He looks gray-green, and he was really wrinkled, and he didn't have those black patches over his eyes. And so I felt fear for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then I felt very peaceful and calm, and I must have went out. He must have put me out. So he must have grabbed some samples too, or whatever he did. But I woke up and my eyes were blinking. I couldn't stop them. They were uncontrollably blinking. I don't know, it was some kind of a
wow.
Yeah. So I don't know what caused that. But my eyes were blinking quite a bit, and they didn't settle down for about a half an hour. I asked my wife, did she see or hear anything? She goes, no, go to bed. What they do is they put everybody out in the room. They knock everybody out. They make sure that nobody comes to. So, that part of it. But have you ever had those type of experiences, Janet? Or?
I haven't had the uncontrollable blinking, but I've had it where they knock out my partner. So they came when I was with my second husband and knocked him out. And then one night, they're funny. They joke with you. So one night they freeze me, and I go, oh, and it's like you're frozen, but you can still kind of see in your mind's eye what they're doing. And then they're, oh, my God, they took my poor husband. And he was so straight and conservative, and he couldn't go this, he couldn't even go down this avenue. He couldn't go down this road in any way, shape, or form. And they took him. They one time came and they took me and Jason. They returned us. This was really weird. They returned us both in our beds, and we were sitting like frozen with our arms down and our faces up. We were flat on our back, which we never slept that way. We were always spooned. And as soon as we, it's like we came to, our eyes opened at the same time, and we saw out of the corner of our eyes these spots, and we both looked, and it was blood. And we went, what? And we started to, at the same time, pull down the sheet. There was more blood. So at the same time, we threw the sheet off. I was almost expecting, like in the Godfather, the horse's head. There's so much blood.
Right.
We started going, are you okay? Are you okay? We were expecting each other, and there wasn't a mark on either of us. It was the weirdest thing. How could the sheets be totally full of blood on both sides? I wasn't on my period. It was like really bizarre. So I warned Jason. He's now deceased. And I said, you may not want him to be my boyfriend because people who sleep with me have strange experiences. And he just got up and he took the sheets off the bed. And he started to get the spray and wash, and he goes, we're never going to talk about this again. We're just going to wash these sheets and forget about it. So I've had a lot of bizarre things, and this, it doesn't make sense except on some level they want you to know. They want you to know what's going on.
Right.
It's like they're giving you pieces of the puzzle, and they want you to figure it out. And that's why I say you have a very high IQ. You've had a lot of experiences. Like, envision yourself putting all this information into your supercomputer, your own AI, right? And let it chunk. Yeah. And then see what it comes up with, like tomorrow morning. A lot of people get activated after these shows. See what it'll come up with tomorrow morning, and maybe you can call me back or send me an email. See if you get more.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'll do that. So a lot of times when you do associate yourself with people who've had similar experiences, or if you think about UFOs, they won't come to people who don't believe in them. I've heard that statement, but why then are people so afraid? I've heard some really horror stories, I know, let's call them stories, experiences of people, especially women, who who get treated really bad on the examining table, and they feel pain and everything. I've never felt that. I've got marks on my body. I got pictures of marks, and actually my wife has a couple of marks, and she has had some weird dreams and things go on, so she knows. She believes me too. If you're around me enough,
right,
you'll be a believer. But I tell people, I said, you're going to see a UFO. I told my neighbor that, the one who said they saw lights in my backyard. I said, you're going to see a UFO within 30 days. Well, 2 weeks later, she saw one, a triangle craft, and she couldn't come and talk to me for almost 2 months. She finally come over. She said, I had to get the guts up to come over and tell you this, Dave. She said, I know you're a UFO expert. I said, no, not an expert, just an experiencer. And she said, I saw one. I said, saw one what? She said, a big triangle UFO. And she said, you told me I would see one. She said, you must have some kind of energy or something. I said, I probably do. And which energy takes me to another situation. When I was flying, we lived in Alaska for a couple of years, and I flew from Alaska to the Philippines and to Singapore. Well, when I got in for the TSA exams, they give you the metal test and take off your shoes and all that stuff. But when you stand up, I don't know what this object is, but it goes around you. You stand up with your arms in the air, and this thing goes around you. Well, I flunk those all the time. I walk out.
Oh, you do?
And what's that?
You do? Well, that's fun. You flunked them. I'm laughing at you that you flunked them. How do you flunk them?
I did. Okay, here's how it happened. I stepped out of it, and there was a TSA guy. He's a pretty good, large-sized guy. And my wife says, come on, baby, we got to go. Get your bags, get your shoes. And he grabbed me by the arms. She said, ma'am, he ain't going nowhere. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you're staying right here. I thought, listen, I said, I'm not breaking any crime. I said, I'm not breaking any laws. And he pointed up at this silhouette of a person on the side of this machine, and there was about 5 yellow spots on my chest and on my stomach and on my shoulders. And I said, no, that's from my back. I got metal. And he looked at me and gave me a dirty look. He said, that's not your back. And he says, he pulled me to the side, and they patted me down. They took an alcohol swab test or whatever they do for gunpowder on your hands and arms. They did all that to me. They checked my pockets, everything. And then they said, okay, you can go, but you got to take this red card over to the person that you're going, the flight attendant, and take that and give it to her. I said, why? He says, don't ask questions. And I said, have you seen that before? He goes, no, I've never seen that before on this test. And so that's not the only time. It happened to me in Seattle, too. I had the same test. I told my wife, said, oh, no, here I go again. And I flunked that one again. I went through, and this guy pointed. He said, there's yellow marks on your body. And I said, can you tell me what those are? I said, they showed it before. He said, no, but they're red flags. He said, you know the routine, step to the side. So they examined me and checked everything. And I said, wow, what is this? What are those yellow blotches in my body? That must be some of the energy I picked up when I got electrocuted, I guess. But it's some story to think about all these little things that happen to you when you encounter these things. It just there's so many little factoids that hit you that says, we got you. So that's how I feel.
They do the ultraviolet, and when you're contacted, they leave marks on you. So I wonder if their equipment is similar to the ultraviolet that you do at the conference. There's a guy that has a machine. There's a lot of the conferences.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's a similar thing, like they're picking up. So you might have been, but you said it's the same pattern both times, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes.
It seems to be the same pattern. So
right.
Some kind
they
of
were
permanent
like little, they're like roundish, like blobs, like on my body, and I can't figure them out. I try to go on the internet and try to find out what the yellow blotches on the body means to this machine, and I couldn't figure it out. And there's a lot of things that I can't figure out. I really can't. That's why I keep searching. I want answers, and I keep searching and searching, and that's why I'm talking about this now. I've been on radio before, back in 2011, 2012. I've done AM radio on some of my stories, but this is just a small local radio station. But I did an interview with Grant Cameron about 10 or so days ago, and did good. I love Grant. About a 2-hour interview with him, and he the YouTube hasn't been released yet. I don't think they got it out. He said his assistant does a lot of that, and they haven't put it out yet. But I've done that over a week ago. But he was.
Well, this will be available right away. As soon as we're done, in about a half an hour, the audio will be ready on the system. It'll be on Blog Talk. I will have you on one of my Revolution radios somewhere down the line here. I'll send you an email. We'll pick a date. So I have 2 different networks, and so we'll get this out far and wide, because this is just another piece of the puzzle, and we've got a very important piece, and we're looking to resolve this issue and get some clarity and connect the dots. So it's fascinating what's been going on with you. Let's see what time. We've got about 30 minutes. If you want to go the whole time, or we could stop now and do another time. I'm going to give you the options. But I know this gets exhausting after a while, especially when you're the one telling the story. What do you want to do?
Yeah, especially when I'm going 100 miles an hour. Well, I can go ahead and finish out for you. I don't want you to lose your time on your network.
2 hours. Go for it. Give me your critical incidents, and then we'll do this again on another show, like in about a month or something, because I don't have any openings left in May, somewhere in the middle of June. I'll give you dates. So, because I know we're not getting all the episodes, so we need to get some critical ones, and then we'll come back and we'll keep unpacking it. Okay, take it away. Keep going.
Some of the smaller things, we can unpack some of those. I've had 2 implants, matter of fact, that I've gotten out of my body. In 2011, I got an implant out of my left calf in my leg, and it was a little round red hole, and it itched a little bit.
Who did that for you? Who did that for you? Did you have it removed by a doctor, or did you do it yourself?
I did it myself with my fingernail. It was a little round red hole in the skin, just like they left in my groin area. That was kind of like a cross cut on my testicles, but on my calf, on my leg, it was a little round red hole, and it itched, so I scratched it, and a little bit of blood came out. I thought, oh, what's that? And I scratched it some more, and then I got a tissue, and when I dabbed it with a tissue, I pulled out this black thing, and it was about, I'd say it's a little over 3/8 of an inch long, and probably about 1/4 of an inch wide, and it was just looked like a little charcoal piece, a little black gray color deal, I guess. And I went ahead and put it in a plastic bag, and I went to this camera shop because I didn't know. I'd like to have some close-up pictures of it, but this camera shop had it for several days, and they come across with some really lousy pictures, and I thought, oh my goodness. So I took my little Sony movie camera, and I took a microscope. It's not a real professional microscope. It's a small one. And I put my Sony camera, and I didn't know that they could do this, a camcorder. I put it on the lens of the microscope, and I got good pictures of the implant. And I took it up to a little meeting that we had, the Springfield Paranormal meeting, and I showed them the pictures of this thing. It looked like brain neurons, like it was coming off from it. It was huge brain neurons, much bigger, but they look like that. And the science person who's really professional, she said, I've been in biology for years, and she said, I've never seen anything like that. She said, that's scary looking. And I said, that's what I pulled out of my leg. And I still got pictures of it, but it disintegrated after a while. After about 2 weeks, it just disintegrated. And just the same way as that little pill thing that I got out of my groin, it kind of was turning dark brown from a ash color. So when they get out in the air, they're supposed to, I guess, they make them to where they just disintegrate and they're gone. So nobody can really run tests on them. But nowadays they're smart. They go in and they have surgery and they have them taken out, and then you have a good chance to take a look at what some of these people have. And mine looked
right. They do analysis on them and see if there's any, metals in it or what's in it. Yeah, I'm not sure who does that right now. We lost the
right.
What's his name, Dr. Lear, who did
yep.
it.
Yeah, Lear.
I think someone
Lear?
took over. I think it was, we have Greer and Lear. Yeah. Yeah, he died. We're losing it. We lost Stanton Friedman the other day. So,
right.
Yeah, we gotta get this all documented before we're all gone. Yeah, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I fell last year, and I was on tour, and by the time I got to Albuquerque, I had a good scab, and then the scab fell off, and this it looked like maybe more gallons or something. They took it's a little creature. It looked like it was dead, and it was, I went, oh my God! It came out in the rain, and I wondered about the fall. It was almost like the fall I was suddenly just falling over nothing, and there was nowhere to catch on, no person, no rail. So I went pink, and and I was on the ground.
Right.
So maybe there's some ways that they are putting these critters in us. That could be from the sea life, but they seem to be alive, or they were alive, So interesting, fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had we have about 36, 15. Keep going.
What's that?
I said, keep going with your timeline.
Oh! I thought you said our time's up. I couldn't get this.
No.
I guess phones have a bad way of communicating properly. It's not us, right? So yeah.
No, it's just the technology's not up to par. Go ahead.
Yeah, but no, I've had the 2 implants that I found so far, but I got something in my thumb. I showed it to the doctor, and they said, well, does it hurt you? I said, no. It's put in a place where it feels like a little piece about 3/8 of an inch long, and it's in my left thumb where the joint is at, but it's put in a place where it doesn't bother me, but I don't know what it really is. I don't know if it's an implant, but I'm kind of a little gun shy on this because I've had several implants, and this one here could be another implant. I don't know. That's another thing that I think people that have a lot of experiences, they got to be careful that you don't overanalyze the situation. And I know myself, I'll stop and I'll analyze the situation, think about it, and think, is this coming from inside the conscious mind, or is it coming from some unconscious or subconscious thoughts or details? And you have to really evaluate yourself on each thing that happens, and I do that quite a bit. I've actually taken and written things in my ledger. I typed them in the ledger, and then the next day my research proved it not to be correct. So I'll correct myself and just tear that page out. So I analyze myself after each event or occurrence, but most of the ones I've had are quite real. Like I said, you got to find one fact in a dream, a vivid dream, or an incident that will prove that incident really happened. Just one solid fact gives you the answer to that experience that you've had. I know a lot of people said they've had a lot of traumatic things. Like I said earlier, they felt pain and they felt like they was beat up. I have never felt that way. I guess I'm running into the right ETs. They have never done me that way. I did see, just for a short while, a 5 foot or 5.5 foot, somewhere in there, a reptilian, young reptilian, standing in my bedroom. And when I woke up and I looked at that, and I squinted my eyes and I looked some more, and I said, "Oh my God!" It terrified me because it looked like a cobra. And I thought, "Oh my goodness!" I started getting out of the bed and I turned around and it was gone. So what it did is it appeared and disappeared in front of me, and I was awake because I got up and I was looking at it, and that scared me because I don't like cobras. I'm afraid of cobras. So that really put a scare into me. I know if I went through my ledger, I could probably run into a lot of small paranormal things that's occurred. And like I said, the marks on my body, I have pictures of a lot of that stuff. I got a trail cam that I think it caught a small gray in Alaska, in Fairbanks.
Oh, in the trail cam. Wow.
Yeah.
Those are fascinating pictures. I've seen a lot of those.
Yeah, but they're
what are they
smeared.
catching on these trail cams around the world?
Yeah. Well, this one's smeared because it was an infrared camera, and it was dark, and so the movement of this being or whatever it was, the first shot, it was a bright light that was kind of like up in the ceiling, and then the second shot was a smear of this little. He's about 3.5 feet tall. He was gray, and he smeared it. You can see his eyes and his little mouth that they were smeared because of the infrared, and you can see where he reached and touched the camera and shut it down. Because I didn't get any more pictures from that camera. I didn't get any more for a while.
He shut it down.
Yeah, he just had to touch it to shut it down, I guess. But no, a lot of things like that will let you know that you're being followed. I had little plastic disc. They seem plastic to me, and I keep them close in a little. I got a little container. And there's 4 of them. And this story is kind of I don't know where it comes from. Is it coming from ET? I know they're upwards. I know that. The first one I saw was in the summer 2012. It was July. I was in the bathroom and I looked down, and right between my feet was a dark. Oh, I heard that. That was a squeal.
I think somebody's trying to call me on another line. Sorry, I have an apartment for rent, and so people are trying to come to my apartment after the show. But that's okay. They're not supposed to come until 4:30, 5 o'clock. Yeah. Okay.
But between my 2 feet, I saw a little disc, and it was a gray-black disc. It was about 5/8. I measured it 5/8 by about 1/16, and appears to be plastic. I picked it up. I didn't think much about it. I kind of looked around. I said, "Where did this come from? I don't have anything like this around the house." They look like little bingo chips, but they're too small to be bingo chips. They were kind of like small, where I don't think they'd allow a kid to play with them nowadays or whatever. But I took it and put it on my dresser top, and I didn't think anything more about it. 2 months later, or 3 months later, it was right after I got married in 2012, and I looked down. I was putting on my clothes, and I looked down on the floor, and right in front of me was a white one. It was a white, like a eggshell color, and I picked it up, and I said, "Okay, now this is getting strange. This is kind of getting strange," and I put them together, and I said, I don't know what this is about. Who could be doing this? Or why would they even be doing something like that? They're getting my attention, and they always put them where I will see them. Apparently, they know time travel or time sequences. They know where you're going to be and when you're going to look down. They put them right where you can see them, and that's where most upwards, I guess, come from, where you can see them. They're very visible. They make sure you don't miss them. So we moved to another loud noise. We moved.
It's somebody who wants to come to see my apartment. I'll get them over done. We're done in about 6 minutes. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Or no.
But make this
16 minutes. Yeah.
But when we moved to Fairbanks, I was at a Rotary Club meeting with. I was renting this house, leasing this it was upper house. They lived at the bottom. It was a big house. So he was a professor, and he took me to his Rotary Club meeting there, and I changed clothes. So I went there, and I was sat there, and there's a bunch of professors in there. There was one guy that kind of looked out of way, and that's another thing I might talk about next time, is that I experience seeing people that have different energies. I have a third eye or whatever. I think I've gotten that through all the travels that I've been through with this ET. I've gotten this third eye where I can look at somebody and say, there's something different about them. There's some kind of different energy. But I was sitting there, I went to the restroom, come back, and this guy, he looked up at me like he knew me, and he had real piercing blue eyes. And I sat down, I looked back at him and said, I wonder what he's looking at. I didn't know him. So after the meeting, I went home. I changed clothes, and when I reached into my left pocket to where I was getting my keys out of my pocket, and I was changing into another pair of pants, I felt something stick to my finger, and it was and I thought, well, what's that? And I pulled it out. I thought it was something sticky that maybe got in on my keys, and I pulled out a disc, another disc. It was stuck on my finger like it was magnetized, and that I looked at that. Yeah, I looked at that disc, and I thought, so this one was a light gray colored disc, and I looked at this thing. No, it's copper color. There's two of them, and I get confused. This one's a copper color, and I left it stick on my finger, and I sat there. I was in shock. I thought, how did that disc get in that pants pocket while I was out to this meeting? And I couldn't believe it. Then I knew, that's when I knew, when I got the third one, I knew something was keeping tabs on me. Something was following me from out there somewhere. I don't know who, what, where, or how, but that disc is the thing that really, it kind of scared me. Because if you feel like you're being followed, you get a little afraid. Well, that wasn't the last one. About 6 months later, wife and I went to the TX there on a base. She worked on a base with the DOD as a consultant, and so we went there and we come out, and in the packed snow, is right on top of the packed snow, right in the walkway, the path that I was going to my car, and my wife saw it first. We saw it about the same time, but she reached down. She said, "Isn't this the same kind of disc you get all the time?" This one was a red one, and it was put on the packed snow as I would, right in the path where I'd be going. So they know where you're going to be. They know where you're going to walk. They know all these things ahead of time. And they put this red disc right there in my walkway. And then I guess my fear was starting to subside, and the questions kept coming in my mind. Who's doing this? Who are they? What are they? What are they trying to tell me? There's got to be something they're telling me.
What was the answer? He who asks knows. On some level, you know the answer. What was the answer? Don't overthink it.
What are you saying? That I asked somebody what they were?
You asked the question, what was this about? And so he who asked the question knows the answer. So be spontaneous right now and answer it, but don't overthink it. Just what comes off at the top of your mind?
I believe they're coming from dimensional sources, of course. I don't think they're ET oriented, and I think what happened is when I broke that little barrier, a dimensional barrier, when I was abducted, I must have brought in other energies that maybe know where I'm at. They follow me, and they may be taking care of me. I don't know, and I hope that's it. I hope that energy is good energy. It hasn't hurt me yet.
So what do you feel? Trust your emotion. What do you feel? Do you feel negative or positive or something in between?
I feel positive about all my events. I feel spiritual. When I first this started happening, I'd go out west, out to Sedona, and I felt like the spiritual energy. It was there's a spiritual energy involved in all this, Janet. I don't know, can't explain it.
I feel so positive it's like it's not only just positive, it's elated, it's absolute joy. And then I hear about these other people when they have horrible experiences, and a lot of people have really good ones, but there's still, like you said, some people that have very bad negative experiences and they have a lot of fear. And I feel bad for them, and I feel guilty that, you know, mine are positive, and I'm not sure what to do about that. I just go, well, what FREE, that organization that does the research on experiencers, says that over time, the perspective of the experiencer changes from negative to positive more often than not. And
right.
sometimes it's who you're working with. You know, like David Jacobs tends to be like a negative outcome, and you might have somebody else that's neutral, and then somebody else that has a more positive. The facilitator, if you go with the facilitator, depends on their attitudes about the subject as well. So it's definitely very complicated what's going on here. But I, trust your emotions. So you're saying it was positive, and it feels like it's interdimensional. I think my conclusion is the ETs have the ability to go interdimensionally. You know, they'll just pop in and pop out, and I've seen that over and over.
Right.
So wow. Okay, we're going to wrap this up here. So
okay.
And we will do some more later. So to conclude, what's one or two more things you want our listeners to know before we sign off for this episode?
I just want people to know that I know there's people who say there's bad ET and there's good ET. I've only ran into the good ones so far. They talk about the reptilians being terrible. I've never ran into one of those. I saw one, like I said, for about 5-6 seconds, and it disappeared. That scared me, just the way it looked like a cobra snake. I think that's why people are afraid of them more so. I had a regressed dream about a tall Nordic. I'll get into that later. I had, a regressed dream about a blue alien, spotted blue alien. I'll get into that later on. So I've seen several of these alien people, but I have never had a real bad experience. It's been kind of a wow experience. I've been scared, a few times, like that shock when they shocked me. That scared me. That was the only time I was really afraid. I think otherwise, a lot of times they knock you out. You don't even know what's going on. But what I want to leave with people that are listening is that there is another side. There's dimensions. Who knows how many. The ETs are coming through dimensional portals. I'm sure of that. They're traveling through these wormholes. I think scientists have a lot of that right. But I don't have answers for anything else. But I think if you have the experience, just kind of go with it and face it. After a while, after several experiences, you get used to it and you get stronger, and you can relate to it much better. So it's something that I guess people have to learn through experiences whenever they do have their experience. And I hope if they ever do have experiences with ET or dimensional, energies, that they have a good one. That's the best I can wish for people listening.
Yep, that's all we can do is hope it's a good one. And I always recommend that people find a good hypnotherapist. Dr. Lessin and I do some, but we don't take on very many people at all because we're so busy doing shows and books. But there are people that are all over the country that are learning hypnotherapy, working with people, helping people recover memories. But you don't have somebody else. You can do it yourself. Learn how to meditate. Go inward. My girlfriend and I, back when we knew nothing, we just got a how to hypnotize book, and we were hypnotizing each other, and we weren't afraid of each other, so we were able to go deep and get a lot of information. So you don't have to pay somebody a lot of money.
Yeah, I wish I could do that, Jana, but the hypnotist I went to, it backfired. She was the one that was put out, not me. That's another story.
Well,
I'll have to tell you that.
That happens sometimes. That happens.
Yeah.
those people go under, and it's okay. She needed to go. She needed to get something, you know.
Yeah, right.
It was vital. It's always vital.
Okay.
But it's the more you can do self-hypnosis. You know, a lot of people don't want to give over control to somebody else because they're afraid that they're going to, you know, lead the witness, so to speak. But you can learn self-hypnosis. I think when you get your dreams, that's maybe a form of self-hypnosis. So what I recommend to people is before you go to sleep, you know, ask for some clarity because humans are complicated. So your higher self can come and help you find answers, you know. Just ask for clarity. And if it doesn't happen one night, don't be impatient. Just keep going. And just ask for clarity from your higher self, from your guides, your angels, however you symbol it. I'm not injecting my religion or belief. Okay. Well, I'm going to call this a day. I see my husband coming in with groceries. I'm going to go help him. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Thank you, Dave. It was a wonderful show. And,
thank you.
I will contact you for future dates. And much love and blessings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Aloha.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.